families fighting for justice, and the nationwide call to shut Rikers down. Subscribe for more real crime stories. Like, share, and join the discussion below. The crowd outside City Hall was louder than it had ever been. Families held up photos of their sons, daughters, and brothers, faces frozen in time, many smiling, some bruised, all gone too soon. Shut Rikers down, they shouted in one voice that echoed through New York City like thunder. Police officers stood in lines, their faces unreadable, as mothers cried out stories of the abuse and deaths that had happened inside those gray prison walls. A woman named Marcia Green raised her son's picture high above her head, tears running down her face. "They kill my baby in there," she screamed. The air felt heavy, filled with pain and fury. Suddenly, the crowd surged forward, pushing against the police barricade. Shouts turned to chaos. Someone fell. Sirens blared. And just as the cameras flashed, a voice shouted, "They're hiding something. Check the tapes." Everyone froze. The next second, the screen on the protest's big projector flickered to life, and a video began to play. It showed something no one was ready for. Then the screen went black. Gasps filled the air. Marcia's hands shook as she whispered, "That's my son." Months earlier, before the world knew his name, Marcus Green was just another 22-year-old trying to get his life back together. He had made mistakes, small ones, but he was determined to change. His mother had found him a job at a grocery store in the Bronx, and he promised her he'd never go back to the streets. But one night, walking home from work, the police stopped him for matching a description. They said he fit the look of someone who'd stolen a phone. Marcus laughed at first, thinking it was a misunderstanding. But when they found an old phone in his backpack, a phone his cousin had given him, things spiraled fast. He was arrested and sent to Rikers Island, waiting for trial. He couldn't afford bail. Marcia visited him every weekend, carrying bags of food and hope. But each time she saw him, he looked thinner, quieter. He whispered about guards who beat inmates for fun, about cells without clean water, and about screams that filled the nights. Then one weekend, Marcia came for her visit, but they told her Marcus wasn't allowed visitors. She waited outside the gate for hours until a guard finally walked over, looking nervous. "There was an incident," he said quietly. "Your son's been taken to the hospital." Her heart dropped. "Is he alive?" she asked. The guard didn't answer. Marcia ran to the hospital, tears blurring her sight. When she arrived, she saw her son lying still on a bed, bruised and hooked up to machines. His eyes were half open, like he wanted to speak, but couldn't. And then, as she held his hand, the heart monitor began to beat faster, faster, and then it flatlined. Marcia screamed so loudly that nurses came running. "Help him, please," she cried, gripping Marcus's cold hand as the doctors rushed in. They tried everything, compressions, injections, machines, but nothing worked. The room was filled with a horrible sound, silence, broken only by the steady, flat tone of the heart monitor. A doctor finally placed a hand on her shoulder and said softly, "I'm sorry, ma'am. We did everything we could." Marcia stared at her son's face. He looked peaceful, like he was only asleep. But deep inside, she knew something was wrong. "He didn't die from no fight," she whispered. "They did this to him." Later that day, when Marcia went to collect Marcus's belongings, a guard handed her a small brown bag. Inside was his torn prison shirt, a broken bracelet, and a folded piece of paper. She opened it carefully and froze. In Marcus's handwriting were the words, "Mom, if anything happens to me, tell them to check the cameras in Block C. They'll know the truth." Her hands shook. Her heart pounded. "The cameras," she whispered. That was the last message from her son. The next morning, Marcia called the prison, asking to speak with the warden. They refused. She called again and again until finally someone told her the cameras in Block C had malfunctioned. All footage from that night was gone. That was when Marcia knew she couldn't stay quiet. She called other families, mothers, fathers, sisters, who had lost loved ones inside Rikers. Their stories were almost the same. "My brother died of dehydration," one woman said. "My cousin was beaten and left in solitary for days," said another. Together, They formed a group called Families for Justice. They began meeting every weekend, printing flyers, holding signs, and recording testimonies. The group grew fast. Reporters started showing up. Soon, everyone was talking about what was happening behind those prison walls. One night, during a meeting in a small church basement, a young man walked in wearing a hoodie. He looked around nervously before sitting beside Marcia. "My name's Luis," he said quietly. "I was in Rikers. I saw what happened to your son." Marcia's breath caught. "You knew Marcus?" Luis nodded. He was trying to stop a fight between two inmates. But when the guards came, they blamed him. They dragged him into the shower room and beat him. I heard him screaming. Tears rolled down Marcia's cheeks. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Luis looked down. "I was scared. They told us if we talked, we'd end up like him." The room went silent. Every eye was on Luis. Then Marcia stood up and said, "Not anymore. We're going to make sure they never hurt another son again." Just as she finished speaking, a loud crash came from outside the church. Everyone jumped. Tires screeched. Then someone shouted from the doorway, "Fire! The cars!" They ran outside and saw two of their cars burning in the parking lot. The flames climbed high into the night sky, painting the church parking lot in flickering orange light. People screamed and ran for cover as the fire roared, smoke curling into the air. Marcia froze, staring at the burning cars, her car among them. The heat hit her face, and the smell of gasoline filled her lungs. Someone had done this on purpose. Luis grabbed her arm. "We have to go." This was a warning. Marcia looked around. Across the street, a dark sedan was parked with its headlights off. The silhouette of a man sat inside, watching. When she turned toward him, the car's lights flashed once, and then sped off into the night. By the time the fire trucks arrived, the cars were nothing but twisted metal. The police questioned everyone but treated it like an accident. "Probably just a fuel leak," one officer said with a shrug. Marcia stared at him in disbelief. A fuel leak doesn't set two cars on fire at the same time. The officer avoided her eyes. "Ma'am, we'll file a report. That's all we can do." That night, Marcia couldn't sleep. She sat on her couch, staring at Marcus's photo. "They think they can scare us," she whispered. "But they don't know who they're dealing with." The next morning, she went to the New York Daily Chronicle and asked to see an investigative reporter. That's how she met Sarah Lopez, a young journalist with tired eyes and a notebook full of secrets. Sarah listened carefully as Marcia told her everything: Marcus's note, the broken cameras, the burning cars. When Marcia finished, Sarah leaned back and said, "You're not the first person to tell me about Rikers, but you might be the one to finally blow it open." Over the next few weeks, Sarah dug deeper. She spoke with former guards, nurses, and inmates. What she found was horrifying: cover-ups, falsified reports, and secret transfers of staff after violent incidents. The deeper she went, the more people tried to stop her. Anonymous calls, threats, files that vanished overnight. One evening, Sarah met Marcia at a diner near the East River. She looked pale. "I got something," she whispered, sliding a flash drive across the table. "It's security footage. Someone leaked it to me anonymously. It's from the night Marcus died." Marcia's hands trembled as she held it. "You mean it's real? You saw it?" Sarah nodded slowly. "I didn't finish watching it, but it's bad, Marcia. Really bad." Before Marcia could reply, the diner door opened. Two men in dark coats walked in. They didn't order anything, they just stood by the door, scanning the room. Sarah's eyes widened. "We need to go," she whispered. They slipped out the back door into the alley, the sound of footsteps following close behind. Rain began to fall, tapping against the trash cans and pavement. Marcia clutched the flash drive tight as Sarah pulled her toward her car. "We have to get this to the press before they..." A loud crash interrupted her. A black SUV came speeding down the alley, headlights blinding them. Sarah screamed, "Run!" Marcia turned, but before she could move, the SUV hit the brakes and stopped inches away from her. The window rolled down slowly. A deep voice came from inside. "You're making a big mistake, Mrs. Green," the man said calmly. "Stop digging, or you'll end up like your son." The SUV sped off, leaving only tire marks and the sound of Marcia's pounding heart.